Are we ready? Okay, so we'll open the Architectural Board Review meeting for Monday, August 13th, and we'll start with a mic check.
Here we go. Chair Tripp,
Here.
Vice Chair Moore,
Here.
Board Member Cunningham,
Here.
Board Member Six,
Here.
Board Member Watkins,
Here.
Board Member Wittosh.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Okay, so we'll start with general business. Any member in the public may address the board for up to 2 minutes on any subject within the jurisdiction not scheduled on the agenda. And we have one speaker slip for Anna Marie Gott. You can come.
Madam Chair, just really quickly before we start her time, just wanted to remind the board that during this public comment there is no discussion. It's really just to hear the member of the public. Really trying to
Okay,
keep it short.
all right. Yes.
Looks like I did not print enough out. So it looks like Mr. Moore or Commissioner Moore is going to be the person that's going to be at the at the City Council tomorrow. So I actually printed out the ABR guidelines. As I mentioned a few weeks ago, if you guys were actually using the ABR guidelines, I don't think you would have permitted this project or many others. It seems that there's no training that's actually happening, and I would really encourage that you guys actually read the guidelines and insist on training, because that is what you guys should be using when you are actually reviewing projects. People make mistakes. Maybe a mistake was made in this project. Please go and take a look at the actual neighborhood. I think that if you actually looked at the neighborhood in context, you may not necessarily look at the project the same way tomorrow as you did a few weeks ago. I gave to you guys a script of verbatim what happened during the meeting, and then I'd like you to take a look at the project compatibility analysis. It talks about is the project and the design guidelines are going to be applicable for the location in the city. It's not the city, it's the location, which means a neighborhood. If you look again at some of the other wording in this particular compatibility analysis, it keeps going back to the neighborhood. When you look at what you're supposed to be comparing a project to, it's the 10 closest buildings. It's not 10 buildings somewhere in the actual city. All of the buildings surrounding it across the street are bungalows or Spanish colonials. The medical building next door is something that was put in there in the 1970s. It's going to eventually be destroyed and you're going to get housing. Your housing is probably going to look very similar to Bella Riviera, which is up the street. Everything is fronting is bungalows. Behind it is the Spanish Mediterranean. And if you actually looked at the guidelines, you would see that they want the streetscape to actually look like the rest of the neighborhood and
Okay.
try to blend in harmony.
Thank you.
And here are some letters. I really urge you to read them because they're very insightful. Thank you.
Oh, is this the Mitchell Torina?
Yep.
Yes, it is, and I hope you attend the meeting tomorrow. I'm
Okay.
not going to be able to be there.
Would anyone else in the public
About
like
4
to comment on a project not on today's agenda? Seeing no one, we'll close public comment. We'll go to approval of the minutes for the Architectural Board Review meeting for July 30th.
I'll move that we approve.
Madam Chair, before we approve these, we did, in reviewing the comments, we were wondering if we could get some clarification for Board Member Watkins on item 1 under board comments, both item 1 and item 2 as they are repeat comments. Just it was a little unclear, and we just wanted some clarification.
Which part? Because it's a
It's-
long paragraph.
So it's under board comments number 2. So they're each.
Right.
It's each member has their own number.
No, I know,
so,
but
yeah.
which part of his comments do you need clarification?
Really, I believe it was the whole.
The whole thing.
Yeah.
Did you read through it?
Yeah. If you could paraphrase it, or you have a clear or correct what's there. It was unclear from the video.
Madam Chair, as he's reading it, I have a comment. I would like to be included as a member present in the
Were you not?
front of it. I haven't for the past 2 weeks. I think I've been here.
Yes, you have. That's a good catch. So we could get board member 6
All right.
on the
We will
attendance.
add you as present. Just for that oversight.
I guess I still like all the points that are brought up in that.
I know. It seems to make sense. Like,
I think if you feel that it accurately portrays, we've had issues in the past with clarity, and I didn't know as I was reading it, it felt a little unclear, and I just wanted to make sure that you felt comfortable with how it was portrayed in the minutes.
I'm still comfortable with it if other board members can follow suit and if it seems logical to them. But I think those points are important to me.
did anyone have any other comments on
I had
any other items?
some comments on the wording of what I said.
Okay,
It's on item number 1, comment number 1. Board member Witosh requested information on how the orientation of
the antenna.
is achieved for the side. He had requested information on the orientation of the side-mounted antennas. Just orientation of the
Side-mounted
side-mounted
antenna.
antennas. And how the overall height of the equipment is determined, period. That was my question.
Okay.
Also asked about the possibility of collapsing the structure. I think it's like making it smaller, opposed to
Right.
collapse.
Sure. Did you get those?
Maybe making the structure smaller.
Possibly collapsing the structure in order to make it smaller.
Yeah, okay, that's fine. Collapsing it to make it smaller, yeah.
Would you
God's sake.
would you make those same corrections for item 2?
I would. Thank you for asking. That's all I have.
For his comments on item 2, is that what you're saying?
Yes,
Yeah,
they're
yeah,
very
that's the
similar.
same, yeah. Okay. Any other comments on item 2? Three, 4, you,
We can jump to item 7. At the bottom, it says individual comment. Vice Chair Moore would like the applicant to provide detailed specifications on the front of the plans when they return at consent. Not sure that's what I said, but
wouldn't that be part of the motion?
yeah, it's kind of an odd thing. So if it's not part of the motion, should it just be struck?
Provide details,
But normally, there are some directions given to the applicant.
right, but it should be part of the, I don't think we,
Would you like
I
to
don't think we
include it in the
typically
motion?
put
Can at this
individual comments, but,
Well, it's an odd statement. I don't know that I said that.
you want to take it off?
Yeah, let's just,
Can
can we strike?
Strike that?
It was mentioned in the discussion. I was wondering if
Okay, so we'll,
the board wanted to give it a direction to the
sounds like we want to strike it. Okay, do we have a,
I'm sorry.
Yep.
Board member, or Chair Tripp? I had a question. I was sitting on the consent item today, and item number 3 came in for us, for 402 Anacapa Street.
okay,
I was confused because when I was reviewing it, one of the comments from our last motion was comment number 2 was study the location of the westerly condenser units. But then I was confused because in our meeting,
Yes.
the applicant brought up that that was approved in a previous meeting. So did we just miss that the last round, or was she referring to maybe the trash enclosure being approved and not the condenser?
It may, so it was, the condenser was approved in its
Okay.
location where it was. It was approved as one condenser. So they were adding a second condenser in that location. The location didn't change, the screening didn't change. It was just,
The number of
it was
units.
just the number of units within the enclosure that was being proposed. I'm not, that was a change that was reviewed at the last meeting. I'm not entirely sure.
Well, if this says restudy, then it should have been restudied.
Yeah, because I still had issues with the location, but it was considered
previously
approved.
approved.
So
Well,
that it
then why
couldn't-
would it be on this list?
That's where I was confused.
Because if it's on the minutes,
See, from memory, sorry,
Yeah.
from memory, the enclosure got bigger,
Right.
and it was getting very close to the tree that was in the front yard, and that was the concern. And with the condenser usually comes a concrete pad that they sit on,
Right.
so that was going to start eating into the tree as well.
So when we
did
review
it
consent,
get ignored at consent?
No, I couldn't weigh on that because what was directed to me was that it was already approved in the location. So I still had issues with it being in the front yard setback, but because of that, I'd acquiesce and just say
if
that it was
the
fine to
board doesn't
propose.
agree with the determination made at consent, when we review the consent minutes, we can request that it come back.
Okay. Because from my recollection, I thought some of us had problems with it being located in the front, but it could have been
Well,
for
it
different
sounds like
reasons.
it sounds like it basically because it's on these minutes as,
That's
and
my
there's only
confusion.
four comments, and the other ones, there's really 3 comments as far, or actually there's 2 comments
Yeah.
that they needed to address. So it seems like it should
Right,
have
that's
been
where I got-
addressed.
yeah. So I guess what happens, because I still had issues,
Sure.
but I didn't want to make a decision on something that was one already approved, so I couldn't do that. But I also felt, based on my recollection, that people on the board actually felt that some of us felt the location wasn't adequate.
Okay,
So do we
so
just
then
wait
I
till
guess we'll
cons-
address that in
We can
the
address that when we go to consent minutes.
Okay.
minutes.
Thank you.
But as far as these minutes, is there a motion? Bob, Richard, all in favor?
Aye.
And 1 abstention. 5-4. Consent minutes for August 6th.
For the August 6th consent agenda for Architectural Board of Review, item A, 128 West Mission Street was continued 1 week with comments. Item B, 3986 Via Lucero was approved as submitted. Item C, 3111 State Street was given approval of its review after final as submitted. Item D, 404 Allen Road was given project design and final approval with conditions.
We have a first,
I'll first.
David, second.
Second.
Bob, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And then for August 13th.
For the August 13th consent agenda for the Architectural Board of Review, item A, 402, Anacapa was given approval of its review after final. That's the one that we would like to discuss.
Yep.
Item B, 920 Summit Road was given approval of its review after final. Item C, 128 West Mission Street was given project design and final approval as submitted. Item D, 322 Edison Avenue was continued indefinitely with comments. Item E, 2034 Cliff Drive was given approval of its review after final is submitted. And item F, 20 Oceano was given project design and final approval with condition.
Okay, so circling back to item A. Was this only reviewed the last meeting? This was reviewed previously?
Well, the condenser unit was in that location for, I think, consistently.
Yeah.
And then just this last meeting, they showed up with needing an additional unit, which made that enclosure bigger, I believe.
Okay. So how do board members want to basically amend this to have them address the location?
Madam Chair, I think from the photographs and so forth, it was heavily vegetated site, and my own personal feeling that it was not an issue, given, and especially not an issue the increase in the size. So that's how I would weigh it.
Okay.
The issue that I had was the fencing is 42 inches, so it's not like it's a 6-foot high fence. And so from frontage, it is visibly, there's a significant amount of landscaping. It is a frontage, though, so I think that was my issue of allowing something to remain in the frontage like that. It wasn't in the setback. There was no special requirements that were going to be, or approvals that were needed, but I thought there could have been some other locations possibly to be explored in the back of the property so it wasn't as visible in the frontage. And that's what I remember having an issue with in the last meeting. I just don't know if everyone feels that or not.
I guess how do other board members feel?
I'm okay with it as.
You're okay with it?
Yeah.
Howard?
Okay.
Okay, based on the majority, I think that we could move forward with the way that the minutes are written.
Okay.
So do we have a first?
Motion for approval?
Bob, second? Seconded by Richard. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
I just wanted to check on the spelling of some of those plantings.
Oh, I think Bob marked it up for you.
Prevented it.
Yeah,
Read
all
my
right.
writing.
Okay. So announcements, requests by applicants for continuances, withdrawals, future agenda items, appeals.
We have 2 announcements today. Board member Moore will be stepping down from item 443, Corona Del Mar, and board member Cunningham will be stepping down from item 103, South Calle Cesar Chavez. And item 2?
Believe so.
Yes, he will be because that is a city
Oh,
project.
it's a city project,
Yes.
right.
But there's no landscaping for that. So.
Okay. And subcommittee reports. Have any subcommittees met recently? No?
No.
Okay. So we'll move on to item number 1. 103 South Calle Cesar Chavez. Proposal for revised parking lot. New 3-story administrative support building for a proposed hotel located on Cabrillo Boulevard. Action may be taken if sufficient information is provided. The project was last reviewed on July 30th. I did watch the video from the previous meeting.
Sure. I tried to get through all the year and a
All of
half,
the videos.
and I didn't make it, so I still have to abstain.
Okay. Okay. If staff wants to start.
Sure, thank you. I just wanted to give you a brief summary of what's happened in terms of this project progressing through our process. It has been to ABR, as you know, several times. It went to 10 different hearings from 2016 to 2017. Mm-hmm. And through that review, a couple meetings where the ABR made comments that the project compatibility analysis criteria had been met. That was first stated on March 13th, 2017. And then on May 27th, 2017, the ABR said that the project was ready for PDA. And then October 23rd, 2017, the ABR stated that the project was ready for PDA and that the compatibility analysis criteria had been met. After that, the project went to the Planning Commission so they could do a substantial conformance determination review. So that was held June 14th, 2018. And then on June 28th, 2018, the Community Development Director granted the substantial conformance determination for this project. Since that time, the project came back to the ABR, and you reviewed it and continued it July 16th and 30th of this year. Mm-hmm. So that's the current step where we're at is they're looking for project design approval, but I just wanted to give you a brief history just to get everyone on the same page.
And then, yeah, I did see in the last meeting, it was confirmed that the drawings that we had said were ready for PDA were the drawings that were at Planning Commission, because I think there was a miscommunication on the 16th about that. Okay. Great. So if you could state your names for the record.
Ryan Mills with DMHA.
And Ed Deviceni with DMHA.
So if you could just, we're all very familiar.
Yeah,
So
we could just jump right in.
we'll jump into what you've brought us here
Okay,
today, so we
great.
can go through that.
Great, right. So we'll do that rather than covering the minutes. Let's
Actually,
see.
yeah, because I don't think, do you have a? I think the main thing was to come back with options. Yeah, so it was continued. Board finds proposed stucco regulate material is unacceptable treatment for the entire facade. Study alternative methods for applying cement board finish in portions of the project. Board may find additional horizontal breakup is acceptable. Board strongly suggests the applicant to provide alternative material options or a combination of materials for the board to review, and to study alternative schemes using other exterior cladding. Okay.
Madam Chair, fellow members of the board. So we went back and we studied and developed 3 options. So the first one is our lead option, which we find is the right balance and the best proposal. So that's what's in the full set and rendered here. I do have a couple, the option B and C as well, that if we don't feel this is the right one, we can share those with you after this presentation. Before we jumped in, I didn't know, something else that came up last time was site context. I didn't know, we did another survey if any of us wanted to refresh context of the building materials and appropriateness of them. So I'll just kind of sift through them really quickly because it's been a while.
Yeah.
So taking a tour down the street, this is the southern end of Calle Cesar Chavez, sort of right north of our site. So the large, you actually get to see our adjacent building and then kind of some of the warehouses beyond. And really the context of the neighborhood is corrugated metal decking, and stucco buildings. So as we move down to the corner, so we know that building. And it does start getting some textures and scoring. Then we jump over to the Vercal building. Same thing, a large stucco building with some rhythm and window breakups to it. And then as we move down, this is something that's different from when this project started. So the new guy on the block there, sort of that corrugated building on the corner of Yananali and Calle Cesar Chavez. Here's another look at it, how it's going up. Kind of gives you an idea of the context. And then if you flip across the street, on Calle Cesar Chavez, the end of Yananali, again, stucco, obviously has some Spanish language to it. Right next door to that, the little Chevron station, again, corrugated and metal building, pretty straightforward and traditional. And then around the corner, some of the larger buildings, same thing. So giving you some context. So it just came up last time, so we wanted to refresh the thinking that this was the neighborhood that was determined at the beginning, and we still are looking to incorporate all of these materials of the block, but put them together in maybe an elevated or a nicer designed building, but using that context. Okay, so now let's just jump into, looking at the elevation and then the associated perspective. So there's really, what you see today, there's a few changes. So the most significant being going back to study the fiber cement panels. So what could we actually achieve? What size could we get for this building? And that meets our budget, and we're able to detail it in the right way. So starting there, so what you notice, I'll just kind of talk to this and we can look at this. So these are 8-foot tall boards. So that was something readily available, a lot easier to work with, and we studied a few pattern options. So what it did was introduced one additional horizontal breakup. So what we do is start one panel at the plate, and it actually hits the sill pretty tidily. And then the next line actually just kind of interrupts the cargo doors below. And then obviously we have a filled-in gable portion as well. But we liked how we tried a few different options, but that seemed to be the tidiest. So with the 8-foot panel, we were happy with how that was broken up both horizontally. And then we ended up with 24, 36, and 48 widths. So I think we're off by a few inches, but a very similar rhythm to before. So that pattern. So that was a big move to bring all of that back, and we were able to make that work with kind of the budget constraints and the project constraints. So that's one piece. The other is the 3-story portion. So coming back with a stucco building was a bit of a shock, but we still stand by seeing the site context that this is the right thing. So we also tested a few options. We had some additional comments about things being too cosmetic or just trying a little too hard to match the patterning on a stucco building. So we looked at that. So in this scheme, really all we're looking to do is to break it up horizontally, not trying to interrupt it any more than it needs to. But we actually like breaking up the massing that way, just sort of echoing some of the horizontals. So that was sort of how we resolved these two in balance. And then the smaller, we left the same. So we have what we like at the end of the day is the balance. So I think Mr. Moore mentioned also, like if we're going to reintroduce this material, get it as close to the right-of-way as possible. So everything with the most pattern, the most interest is closest to the pedestrian interaction. So that's what it does. So we like that. We start with the smallest form, has the densest pattern and the darkest color. And then it steps up to the 2-story building that has a slightly lighter color, and the pattern starts loosening up and is more interesting. And then kind of as it recedes to the background, the largest form is the lightest color and the simplest detailing in terms of the massing. So we kind of liked the thinking and how that resolved itself. In addition, we simplified a couple other little things. So at the riglets, last time we introduced, we were letting the riglets get darker than the stucco itself, so it might pop. That felt like it wasn't received well, so this time what we can do is match the color, so paint out the riglets, so even the patterning is a little more subtle. So that's sort of what we chose to do here and with the stucco. Also, the sill. We removed the sill. We were finding kind of as we got to 3 different types of materials, the sill is very fussy to pick the same sill to work with all these different materials. So where we got to was eliminating sills altogether. So, and I brought an image that some of us are familiar with here. Just kind of introducing what this stucco box feels like. So all of our detailing really matches this condition. The stucco rolls back to the window, and we have all the detailing in this set matches this current scheme, which we can look at in a little bit. So it kind of gives you an idea. This is about the same scale, the height, the rhythm of windows, and the detailing of the windows, and how we roll it in. So that was simplified. Same with the fiber panel. We just dropped the sill, and it just holds tight. And then for the corrugated metal, it's pretty traditional. So we have the flashing that just wraps over the inch, is an inch or two. Just a fairly traditional corrugated detailing around windows. Okay, let's see. So I think that covers the main changes. So we can sift through the drawings wherever you like, or dig in the details if you have questions. Otherwise, that's our presentation.
Do you want to show just that detail of the sills, of
Sure.
just how each of the schemes,
Sure.
and then we can go to questions?
Let's see. Let's back. Oh, and another point to make is the colors are back to what the board previously reviewed and approved. So we can paint the stucco or do integral color. So that was more like in the material boards in the set, but the white. But this closely resembles what were at long
Okay.
ago.
Then maybe after we look at these details, you could go to the materials board.
So starting here down at 05, so this is the head and sill of the stucco. So you can see how we just kind of tightly roll it back. And if you remember a few meetings ago, part of the window was we were trying to get this consistency, the thinness of the sash all the way around. So here's how we document it. It's the 1.5 inches that gets pulled all the way around. So we have to kind of disguise some of that to closer simulate that light metal window. So that's that condition. Here's the corrugated version. So again, to accomplish that, we're blocking and getting some metal flashing just to capture the corrugated. So that's a little more traditional, right? So we can flop over there a little bit more. And then in the fiber board, we're doing the same. So we have to block out to get that same width, but you can see with the J moldings, they're just holding tighter. So it's just 1/8 of an inch that holds that board rather than kind of looping up over. So we kind of like the cleanness of that. So that's sort of how those 3 details resolved itself.
Will the flashing color match the material?
Yes. So, and that's throughout. Yep. You know, even as it turns up, because we wanted to have a distinct difference between the window system and then where it interacted with it. So you didn't read more dark metal.
Or you didn't read like stainless?
Correct. Correct. Let's see, where's my material board?
On the elevation.
Oh, this is going to be tough upside down, isn't it? Let's see.
I guess we'll need like an updated.
Yeah, we submitted one. We can also bring a copy. We have to come back for final. We have to
Right.
come back again, so we'll
But
we can bring
otherwise,
that. But otherwise,
these are
yeah, it's
close
all
to
called out
the-
here. All the material call-outs are here
to
on
the
this
colors
sheet.
that are.
Yep. That is.
This
That doesn't look.
is an older one.
No,
Yeah,
that's not-
this-
that's
there's
not
an
the
older
one.
one than this that should be.
Okay. Well, if-
But we match the colors. We could show you on the material board next time.
okay.
Yeah.
Does that conclude your
It does.
presentation? All right. Go to public comment. Seeing no one. Go to questions from the board. Howard, do you want to start with questions? Do you have any questions?
No, I have no questions.
Kevin, do you have questions?
Well, you mentioned alternates. Do you want to present those, or what is your?
If you would like to see them, we feel this is the best, but we have them if you would like to peek.
Sounds like this is what you want to present, and
Yes.
it's unless there's
See 'em?
issues with this one, you
Correct.
want to see them?
Yeah.
But, so, do you want to see them?
I'd like to see.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so calling this 1A, so this is the one you're looking at right now. So then the next step, so the next variation, these are subtle differences. We maintain the corrugated and the fiber panel. We think that doesn't need to change. So in this, we did reintroduce vertical raglets, but just simpler, more subtle at 6-foot bays. You know, it's sort of just kind of ghosting the pattern here, but still wanting to go away. So not sure if it's still trying too hard with the stucco or how fussy it gets. One challenge there will be we'll have potentially some sill details to sort through if a vertical
Regulate
raglet
comes up to
yeah,
it.
hits
Yeah.
that sill. So might have to reintroduce an idea of a sill. That's why we thought it was a little fussier, but so that's what we looked at in option B is just dressing up that box a little bit more. And then as we move, kind of a slightly more dramatic change is then, again, not changing the front, going to a decking. Still breaking up horizontally, creating some movement in the pattern, but same thing. So we have the tight corrugated, the panel, and then we would choose the 16-inch. Again, trying to create a different rhythm. That's more similar to that UCSB housing out on Stork. I don't know if you guys have seen that. So this is less desirable to us, but going back to maybe some of that, Howard brought up some of the mine shaft architecture. So we wanted to study some of the more metal building. And I think that was it. Oh, and
Well,
then
this
actually
changes
finally
that.
there was another option of all metal. We don't really think that's appropriate. We really like sticking with the original idea. So that was kind of the thinking to support this one, though.
Okay. If you could go to option 2. So this reglet pattern is essentially what we're proposing here. Is that the same dimension For these two lines?
These are the same, right? They look the same.
Yes, the horizontals are the
hor-
same, so
yeah.
it's just
That's
introducing.
a 3/4 inch
Yep.
reveal.
So it's the same, and here's the reveals, yeah. So the horizontals can just be that Z flashing, and then the verticals would be the reglet.
And can we just quickly see how this resolves itself on the
Yeah.
the back?
So you've got the panels back here too. The panels go
Yep.
all the way around this
Yep.
building? Okay.
Yep, so we reach them all around and try to start. I think we turn the corner, so the east elevation, then we turn the corner to the north, and then, after we pass the stair, I think we actually eliminated the 24, just to try to simplify it a little bit more where no one would ever see it, but still maintain some organic pattern to it. But yeah, do wrap that all the way to the stucco building.
That's it?
David?
You were talking about the reglets trying to match the colors.
Mhm.
Was that for the stucco part of the building too? You want that
Be
reglet
both-
to
for
solve
both.
both situations?
Yeah.
Okay. Are there other color options too that if you wanted to get them a little bit darker, not to do the same? Are there other color options available if you wanted to fuss with maybe not blending it in, not making it totally stark, but kind of at least accentuating a little bit? Or
Yeah.
is it just
I offhand, I can't remember. I mean, there's some base colors. You can always paint them. That's a little bit more labor, but I can't remember. I don't know if you know offhand. We could absolutely consider that.
Regular?
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
Were any of those options, did you guys look at those at all? Did they seem desirable to you to?
Well, the darker they,
Thanks. It's all no. Yeah.
I think one was similar to the dark one we showed previous. Didn't feel like that went over that well to have something too dark. I mean, the other option is more like the clear anodized, something like that. But that was just, there's nothing like that on this building. All the metal is sort of more black and steel look. So we didn't really feel totally comfortable with that either. So sort of just a subtle color difference, which I think if you match color, you get that with the shadow line. I mean, or yes, we could consider a step down in the hue, I think would be the other thing we'd be comfortable with. But we can look at that.
But based on what you guys looked at, it doesn't feel right to kind of do different color options.
It's about how subtle we want these kind of scores to be. So we like that it ended up subtle. Now bringing back more of the patterning, we think that is successful that way, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's it. Thanks.
The only question I have is on the front, you see the two, but there's really a third one? Is that third? Actually, there's the third one.
At the
you don't
plate.
Okay, so you
Yeah.
won't see it at the front. This line, you'll
Well,
see it wrap around
you-
the
well-
side and then the back.
Well, you
right?
do, but technically it is here. You can see it's behind the trellis, so it's the front of the third-story building.
No,
that what
I
you're
guess
saying?
what
Of the white
I'm,
box?
yeah, but what I was getting at was,
The back.
you're not gonna
Oh,
have,
It's right at that gutter line.
right, so you're not gonna like
No.
see a line
no, no.
cut
Yeah.
and have only like 6 inches. That's what
No,
I was
see,
wondering.
you actually get it in the back, but it hits because of our roof, it hits the plate in the front.
Okay.
So there is no score there.
All right. That was all I had. Comments? Howard?
Well, I think of all the options that you've shown us, I like the stucco option, and I think the
Can
mix.
you, do you mean this option? Because there's,
No, yeah,
Presented.
I was
There's
going to
a-
get to that. There's a metal option, and then there's 2 stucco options.
yes,
So I'm good with either of the stucco options. I prefer stucco over metal, although I love mine shaft architecture, as you know. So the stucco, where you have the horizontal and the verticals, it's very subtle, and it's delicate, and it's not cosmetic. It's okay. I like that. So of all the options you presented, I think this is, all the study is paid off. And I think the stucco is also compatible with the other buildings in the neighborhood. I like the progression from smaller buildings in the foreground, darker, fading to the larger building that's the lightest. I think that makes a lot of sense, and I think the project composes nicely. That's my comment.
Okay, thanks. Kevin?
Yeah, I appreciate your time and energy and effort to come up with different options to present. That's very helpful. And I understand the strategy behind option A1. And in all likelihood, that back building will not be all that visible with all the landscape and all that. But I feel like cladding option A2 is really sort of brings the entire building into one cohesive conclusion, I guess you would call it. So I prefer option A2. And I think the front of the building is great, and just with this little bit of detail and with the reglets, I think that makes it close enough to what was previously presented that I think it's fine. Okay.
All right, David?
Yeah, first, thank you guys for taking the time to do the studies. I think it's helpful not just to do one, but to have three like that. I know that's not easy, especially so late after so many iterations, but it helps a lot to even just to kick other options around and just see it all in front of you. So I think I agree with Board Member Witosh and Board Member Moore's comments that I think A2 for me is capturing that original integrity that's there. I think it's got character now, and it all just feels right. It all blends together very well without seeming too stressed or forced. So it's a nice design. I think they're all great options, but I think A2 for me captures that original integrity that stood out so much in the beginning. So I think that works well for me.
Great.
Everything else is okay.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat. I was in between. The one thing I'd like to see actually, I like the subtlety to the reglets, but it's what you already mentioned. How do you detail a reglet hitting that sill? So,
And I think they should have some freedom. I don't think you should have to be so rigid in your pattern that you can't slide those back
That's
and forth
also
to make a miss
That's what
or
I was-
align the right way.
yeah, that's what I was going to suggest, is adjusting it so that you could have the subtlety of the pattern, but the clean detail
Yeah.
with the stucco wrapping up. And just a quick question, are these supposed to have awnings also
No, we've never had awnings on that first floor.
on the first floor? Okay. Maybe, yeah. I was just
There's-
wondering, because all the shading's happening on this side, but
Yeah, we have the landscape. I believe there's sizable trees along the building there, and there's landscape in front of it.
okay.
Palms are, aren't they?
Palms are. If we can.
Well,
we
if
can
it's,
look at that.
it's
but
okay, it was just a,
This is not that part.
I was
hasn't changed.
just curious. It stayed the same. So I think, would someone want to make a motion? Or,
I was going to add, so all the detailing, we believe, it's all completed and it's what we had originally talked through, all the trellis and the awnings. None of that has changed, the eve details. So we would ask if it's possible, if this has support, we could come back with material board to consent and to review
right,
any detail.
yeah, because all of the details that we've already looked at for the awnings, trellis, how this is coming together.
Is this ready for final?
Yeah, so I would make a motion for project design approval to return on consent for final with the materials board.
I'll second that. That's a
Okay.
motion.
All in favor?
Can ordinary people second your motions?
Yes. You can second the motion.
I have a question, Madam Chair.
Sure.
Does this have to be read, the compatibility stuff?
Do we
or-
reread it from previous?
And if we could remember to announce the 10-day appeal period as well.
All right. So the board has reviewed the proposed project, and compatibility analysis has been generally met for this project as follows. The proposed development project's design complies with all city regulations and is consistent with ABR guidelines. The proposed design of the proposed development is compatible with the architectural character of this neighborhood in Santa Barbara, given that it is directly adjacent to an industrial area, and it's pulling from those characteristics. The size, mass, bulk, and height and scale of the project is appropriate for this neighborhood, giving the adjacent buildings. And the design of the proposed development is appropriately sensitive to adjacent city landmarks as it's set back from Cabrillo and not adjacent to historic resources. And the design of the proposed project responds to public vistas as it is next to another large building, so it wouldn't affect the view to the mountains, and it doesn't affect the view to the ocean. And the design of the proposed development includes an appropriate amount of project open space and landscaping. So it would be product design approval to consent, and we had a second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? One abstained.
And is that in 2 weeks? Is that part of that?
So what do we want to,
It would be indefinite.
it would be indefinite, so,
Have to still go to Creeks, and there's some routing that needs to happen before final
Oh,
approval.
okay.
and then this starts your 10-day appeal period. So I think you can talk with staff to figure out if you could get on the next consent calendar.
Okay.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very
Thanks for
handsome
all of,
project.
thanks for all your work.
Yeah, it's great stuff.
All right, we'll be moving on to item number 2,
Yeah.
525. Well, actually, we need to wait 5 minutes.
Got through it so fast.
So we're going to continue with item number 2, 525 East Giannonali Street. It's an in-progress review, and it says comments only. They're requesting comments on the preferred color of the future building envelope proposed to house essential operation equipment for the city's desalination plant, and the project was last reviewed on April 2nd, 2018. So if you could state your names.
Brian Demore, city engineer.
And Carlos Sanchez, engineer.
Great. So we last saw this in April, and we last saw the actual desalination facility, right? And let's see, the work is on the 64,000 square foot parcel, includes replacement of existing seawater, reverse osmosis modules, refurbishment of water storage tanks, new landscaping, and access gate relocations. So if you want,
Just for clarification of what we're reviewing today, so about a month ago, Public Works came to design review and asked what the process would be to get some comments before they move forward with the contractor to determine what, just really right now, I believe the focus is just the color, the appropriateness of what color.
okay.
So, that's it.
And this is for the cladding that we'd like to add around these treatment units at the plant.
Okay, so maybe you could walk us through this package and
Sure.
show us what you're proposing?
Okay. I'm going to skip, I think, to the aerial, just to get us kind of situated on what is out there today, because when these treatment units were originally before the board, they hadn't been built, and as you can see, there's 3 different units. There's approval for a 4th unit which hasn't been built. We're not under contract to build that at this time. And what the contractor who is now operating the plant has informed us is that the original plan to enclose these units needed to be modified due to access issues. They had it basically just the 10 feet, just framing that in, and there's some equipment, some valves and other things in here that they need access to, so they're proposing to raise the height on this end up about 4 feet and then have it sloped down. The purpose of the cladding is both to keep the elements out of this. You can see right now they're using tarps, so it's clearly not a long-term solution, but it's a needed part of the project. And also, it does abate some of the noise that comes out of here, so that's a second purpose, but primarily it's the elements. So that's the biggest change is just the dimensioning of this, and now we actually have materials that have been spec'd out, and we brought samples and have colors proposed. So the other sheets behind this, actually it's just another aerial photo where you can see the 3 different units, and then this one shows where that 4th unit would be located, same spacing, a little bit closer to Yananali Street though. And the next bunch of renderings show what it would look like. This first one here is from Yananali Street, and you're seeing the cladding of what it would look like with the 4th treatment train actually built. So
Right,
today,
because right now there's nothing close to
today it's not there,
that. It's back here.
but there's a good chance that that will be there in the future, so we wanted to show what that would look like. I don't think you would see anything other than, actually that wouldn't even be there, the electrical, that's an electrical panel? Yeah. So it would not be visible until the full build out, but we did want to show that. And then this is just a little bit closer up. I described that this would be about 4 feet up from the these are filters?
Correct, they're filters.
Yeah, and then sloping down, which keeps the runoff from getting into the equipment. And then just some other angles of what this would look like. So the walls, the side panels, are perforated, which helps for heat. There's a lot of equipment in there just for dissipating the heat. And we have a sample that was submitted of the side panel without holes and the wrong color, but
This is, oh, okay, so this is this, but with the perforations?
correct.
Yeah.
Yes, and the proposed color would actually be this one here. This is called titanium, so it'd be this color on the side with those perforations.
Okay.
And then for the roof, we didn't submit that sample, but we actually have one. I brought it along. It would be without the perforations, obviously, and the proposed color is called bone white for the roof. And again, part of that, it has to do with the dissipating heat with all the equipment that's in there. Anything else, Carlos, to add to that?
No, I think you've captured it pretty well.
And these are just additional views. right?
Yes. Probably more than we needed, but
No, it's good. It's helpful.
so yeah, we were just right now looking for comments
Of the
and
colors.
specifically on the proposed colors.
Okay. Does that conclude your?
I guess one other thing, we, as you saw in the aerial photo with the tarps, that's not an ideal situation, and the rain season's a ways away, but we need to get materials ordered and delivered. Not asking you to make a decision today, we're just looking for comments,
sure.
but
Originally, was this just flat? Was it still these materials but flat?
yes.
And now you want to raise it, obviously, because you need access under here?
For access purposes, yes.
Okay. Does that conclude your presentation?
Yes.
Okay, so we'll open public comment, seeing no one. Go to questions from the board. Howard, do you have any questions? And
So this application is for this, to put a sloping roof.
before we all start with our questions, we're only commenting on colors today.
Oh, I see.
So the color is the focus of this meeting, right? And then,
So they will.
can you, yeah,
Yeah, so as you said, the focus today is the color. They will be returning for approval of a design with the direction for the color. I believe there was some requirement from the contractor to have a color before they can move
before
forward.
they
That was
priced it or
right.
something?
So
Okay,
that was my understanding. And
It's a lead time issue for us. They want to order the materials so they can have them ready for the.
did
for
we
the
already
installation.
approve the materials? Because that was going to be my next comment, because if someone has a comment on the materials, that would also come later, so you'd probably want those comments now, unless we already approved it.
it was before my time, and unless it is reflected in the minutes.
All right, well, start asking questions and I will see what.
This unit that you're covering with the vertical extension and the sloping roof is quite a ways back from Yananali, right? You're away from Yananali.
Show the aerial.
I mean,
So this photo here gives you the best view of the overall site, where you can see the 3 installed treatment
See.
trains with room for the 4th.
I see.
And then further yet is Yananali Street. You can see the parked
Okay.
cars along the north side of Yananali.
so does the roof pitch toward the mountains or toward the ocean?
Mountains.
Okay,
Yes.
and, those are my questions.
Kevin?
Are these actually going to be visible from the freeway, or are they all pretty well hidden by the other equipment that's adjacent to the freeway?
I think they'd be hidden by that large piece of equipment that Brian is pointing at. That's a pretty substantial machine in that spot.
Right. So we'd really just be seeing the little top of this future piece if it happens.
Correct.
Okay. And then as far as you know, there's no cost difference in the standard colors?
No.
Okay. That's it?
Madam Chair?
Richard? Yeah.
On the first aerial, is this pewter, I guess? This existing beast is there and going to stay, no?
Correct.
Yeah. Is that the titanium, or is that a pewter, or
Is that
and-
olivine green?
It's olivine.
Yeah.
it's olive green?
Olivine.
Olive, it's like,
Olivine,
yeah,
yeah.
Correct.
it's a specific color they had.
I see.
We tried to get the yellow stairs painted that color, but
Mm-hmm.
we could not.
Could you,
Just
could you
so
show what
if
olivine
anyone-
looks like on that color?
It's, well, it's
No,
this
no, on the
color,
color
is it
chart.
on here?
I'm not sure they have that.
No, that wasn't an option, a direct option.
What do you mean?
Is it an option?
Is it an option?
These are the
We
only
could pick the
options.
best, the
These-
closest.
these are the only
but it's not
options,
going to be
'cause-
the
So
same.
you could pick one that's almost
Close.
a sneeze to, close to,
It's actually funny because this titanium color looks different, looks closer to the, what's in this. I don't know.
so I guess I still have the question, is the olivine, or whatever it is, close to that titanium, or is it different? And could you find a color on the board closer to the olivine without much
Have you guys
duress?
looked at that?
We haven't contacted this particular manufacturer to see if, I mean, these are all the stock options. We selected the one that appeared to be the closest matched, but it won't be an exact match. I'm not sure that they have the option of custom colors.
But
We
you-
could talk to them about that.
But you are saying the titanium is the closest match?
That's what we
to-
think, yes.
Yes.
Okay, great, thanks.
No
Good.
questions.
So I don't think, we haven't seen any, or we hadn't seen like the materials, right, that were enclosing these previously? Because I think before we were really focused on landscaping, on having the equipment all painted olivine green, which I think it's these pieces, right? Or is it all these that are painted the same color?
Yes, they are.
And then, so, okay.
There was a material that was presented and approved, and Brian has a photo of it.
I believe I was not at the prior meetings, but I believe this is what was presented as an example. So
Yeah,
it is
but
a
it-
different
Okay.
type of cladding material.
Okay, so either way, this is a new
Yes.
proposal. Okay. I don't have any other questions. Do you have the color?
This is the roof.
And so let's, oh, Howard has it. So we can go into comments, and if everyone could weigh in on color. The color, you might as well also weigh in on the materials, because since they are going to be proposing these in the colors, so.
Comments? I think the perforated corrugated metal siding is appropriate. I think the color that you are thinking for the siding is appropriate, and then basically to match other materials. I think the roof color is going to be very bright. And I think it's not, whether it's visible from the freeway or visible from the hillside, I think, that this will be a white roof experience. And it's going to stand out. If there's any way for you to achieve a moderate thermal, optimal thermal color that was not white or bone or whatever that's called, I would prefer that. So it looks like landscape rather than white building roofs. And other than that, that's my only comment, since this is about color today.
Yeah, just color. What is this one?
But it is bone white.
Bone white, okay. But are you okay with this titanium color? For the sides?
I think I would like to see it darker.
Did you, okay, all right.
There's some colors on that standard list there, the standard palette, that would work, I think, better.
Okay. Kevin?
I guess I would, Howard, I would take the opposite tact, I guess. I mean, these things are like the least of the problem on this site. There's so much other stuff up in the air that's big and tall and not particularly attractive. I think the neater and tidier these little sheds can be, the better. Personally, I think the image where we're seeing it peek over the wall is probably the most important one.
That's the first one.
And the more wall-like that can be, the better, I think. So I would be inclined to say, why not have the walls also be bone color as well as the roof? Or so the entire thing is the same color. So they truly are these little sheds. And that they, hopefully by being all white, they sort of blend in a little bit better to the walls and the, and you know, that they are what they are. I think painting them green isn't going to help. I think that's just going to make them stand out even more. And I think, like I said, painting them all white will just make them nice and clean and not stand out at all. That's my opinion.
Richard?
I would say that I concur with Howard's view that bone white could be toned down for the interest of the long views from the Riviera, etc. But I have to differ with Kevin on the whiting. The cloudy day gray that you see there is the color to have things disappear, and I would support that color choice.
This one?
Yes.
The titanium?
For the walls.
Okay. For the walls. And the roof?
The bone white could be toned down a bit to one of the muddier ones for the interest of the long
Is that
view.
the roof?
The roof, yes.
Okay. David?
I think the color for the body is fine as proposed. It sounds like it's matching the olivine. Is that the color?
It seems like it'll be...
yeah, close. I think to match
I don't know
existing.
if it's going to be exactly.
Or
but-
yeah, the comment to match as close as possible. I think it seems like that's pretty close to being there, so I support that. I see the comments of Board Member 6 and Board Member Whittouch. I just don't see any colors on there that I think it goes too dark after that bone, so I kind of worry about that. I think it's kind of clean, the bone and the titanium as presented, so I'm actually on board with what you guys have right now. I think it's fine.
Yeah, I actually am... I see the comment about doing the all white, but I could also see just doing all gray, because I don't think these are going to stay clean. Because if there's a lot of air exhausting out of the sides from through the perforations, so. But I think that it would be a lot cleaner if it was all the one color. I like the two colors that you've chosen. I would be more inclined to say the gray, but I'm actually okay with the white. Just to simplify it. I'm okay with I think it makes sense with the perforations at the sides and the corrugated on top, the solid corrugated.
Madam Chair, I'm easily swayed by Board Member Watkins' comment on the white roof and wouldn't make a motion to approve, or we're not
Well,
approving, we're recommending.
We're kind of just, pulling our comments together.
Yeah, that the comment,
We
my
will
comments.
be looking for a motion. It'll just be an indefinite continuance back to the full board,
Yeah,
but we would need sort of a consensus of the board of the appropriate direction for color.
Why don't we just take a straw vote because it's comments only? We can't make a motion.
So, because it's an in-progress review, we still have, as with other large projects, we've had we do motions for indefinite continuance and provide your comments to them. It's not for a pre-application. We would just take everyone's comments as they are mentioned, but for this we do need a consensus of the board.
Okay. Were you going to make a motion?
So I'll make a motion for indefinite continuance with the comments that the colors presented are acceptable.
Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? All right, so we had all. So we will see you back on consent. Did you? Oh, no, to the full board to review the details.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
I think the reason it's sloped in that direction is to keep the water out of the filters, because you tend to get a lot of debris and kind of dirt, and we only want a specific type of water from the ocean coming in and getting treated. So if we start getting dirt and those kinds of things, it's not good for the process.
All right. So
Please take those.
we're going to move on to item number 3,
You want to keep the
443 Corona Del Mar Drive.
Thank you.
Thanks. This is a concept review, continued item. It's a proposal for a remodel of an existing Motel 6 in the coastal zone. Project consists of an interior remodel and improvements to the exterior of the 2 existing motel buildings, including new windows and doors, new roofing, new railings and fencing, metal parking, trellises, and upgrades to the pool area. Changes in landscaping are proposed as part of this project, as well as the introduction of planters to the rear parking lot. There's no change in the number of parking spaces and no change in the number of rooms. This is the second concept review. This is a comments only, and the project requires further environmental assessment and was last reviewed July 30th, 2018. And if you could state your names.
I'll make sure that's on.
Kyle Wyatt with Motel 6.
Jarrett Gorin with Vanguard Planning.
And then we had 3 comments to restudy the overall materiality and design aesthetics of the proposed project to make it more appropriate to its location, provide a more natural canopy material. The proposed contemporary materials are incompatible with the area, and add additional landscaping where possible, including along the back property line.
Okay, so I wasn't here at the last hearing, but everybody's brought me up to speed on it. And I think sort of the primary comment was too many materials last time. So we've simplified the material palette down to basically 3, which are going to be this wood product, which we'll go over with you. It's called Not Wood. It's not wood. But anyway, we're using this, and we're using some metal products and basically a bronze product. So let me just walk you through it really quick. Also, the design of the shade structures was sort of a Palm Springs mid-century modern butterfly roof, and we've changed those into more of a wood-looking trellis. Although it is still cantilevered, just because we don't have. Where do we get to the? Where's our elevations that show that trellis? And you're gonna have to excuse me. I'm just into this plan set for the first time today.
You want the exterior elevations?
Yeah. So this is showing where these trellises are on the ends of the building, and these would be made out of this material here, which, unlike some of those other ones which have like a perfectly flat sheen and look like a fake veneer, this one's got texture to it, and it doesn't really shine like the other wood products. So they're still cantilevered, not 100% traditional, but it's consistent with, you know, the more, I don't know, mid-century modern feel of this building. And we don't really have an opportunity to get another post in here because of the parking. So our options really are to cantilever this, or to, you know, recenter this over this post, but then it's not really serving the purpose we'd like. And we had, here's the sketch from, let me find the one from last time. So this is the sketch from last time with that sort of angular roof metal structure. And then this is what we're proposing to construct out of what will look like heavy timbers. And it would be cantilevered out, and that's what they look like. On the materials, this entire cable rail fence, the stanchions are going to be a clear coated aluminum, so it looks like stainless steel, just a clear metal. And then the cables themselves are just the steel cables. And then the top cap would be a version of this, so it looks like a wood top cap. And then same with the columns. This doesn't really show the columns. We're going to have those columns. We've got a rendering of it. They would also be wood clad. This kind of shows it here. We'd introduce these columns in that wood clad. And then these are the existing AC units, but we're going to cover those with that decorative screen, which is sort of a...
It's just a clear anodized aluminum to match the
Yeah,
stanchions.
it matches the rails, and then the windows will match those. So it's just that one color of metal everywhere. And then the end of the building, I'm not sure how we were doing that before, but the way we're proposing it now, where is that picture?
It's towards the end.
Here it is. So we want to put this screen on the end of the building with just vertical wood, this stuff with
It's the same
the
product.
holes cut in it in certain places. And it's just a flat plane of wood. And then the fences and dumpster enclosure and all also made out of the wood. And then if we go to the landscape plan at the back, it's the last page in our set. So it now shows the plantings under the stairs, which I guess it didn't last time. And then along this fence back here, currently there's no planter at all. It just comes straight up to the fence. And we looked into doing a 3-foot deep planter strip, and we just can't do it. We already are constrained on our back out, and taking another foot out of there makes all of this parking just not work. And we're already non-conforming to parking, so we can't lose any spaces. We did introduce these planters. This is really similar to what we did on that De La Vina project, where we had a similar constrained situation. So we do have opportunities here for a lot deeper planters and to put bigger plantings in, but we really need to keep this at 2 feet, and we cannot do 3 feet on that. So we're in an existing non-conforming situation here. We actually could leave it the way it is, but we want to introduce this landscaping, and I think with the combination of these things in there so that it's not just this tiny 2-foot strip all the way along, I think that'll it'll accomplish what we're trying to do. And then I don't know if there was a whole lot of comments about it, but we don't have a fire pit on the ground level anymore. We just have one proposed on the upper story deck. Where is that? That's the ground floor.
It's a site plan.
Second floor, there you go. It's going to go right there on that.
Yeah,
extension.
so up in here, and it's a fully enclosed fire pit. It's actually rated for interiors, so it'll be vented up through the roof and sort of in the middle of that deck upstairs. I know we got a plan that shows it, but in any case, I'm not going to waste your time looking for it. It's like right here in this area on the upper story deck.
So this gets enclosed.
Well, the deck doesn't get enclosed. The deck's still an open deck, but there would be a fire pit on it, and the fire pit itself is enclosed.
I see. There, yeah.
Like a
Okay.
fireplace
Got
in the
it. It's
middle
more,
of it going
okay.
up.
Right.
Got
Yeah,
it.
it's just I
Okay.
saw the fire pit location initially. I'm like, I don't think you can do one there. But then they showed me the product, and it's rated for that.
Okay.
So,
So
that's
you'll have
all
like
I
a
have.
flue coming up through.
Yeah, a flue would come up.
through the roof.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then there's one last thing. These we're interested in doing some screens like this on the ground floor too, between the parking and the walkway. It doesn't have anything down there right now, and we're interested in introducing that element to break those up. We don't have to have it, but we wanted you to look at it.
Okay. Does that conclude your
Yeah,
presentation?
it does.
All right, so we'll open public comment. Seeing no one, we'll go to questions from the board. David, you want to start this time?
Do you guys, is that the only rendering you guys have? Is this?
We have
Color
lots of
Basin?
renderings.
Do you,
Yeah.
do you have a color one?
Well, we have this whole set of 8.5 by 11s that have colored renderings of all over the place. I don't know exactly where they're all from, but
Okay, so this is what you're talking about.
Yeah,
A floating.
yeah. And just to point out, we noticed the guy that rendered these things, he still rendered the stanchions as a wood color. They're not a wood color. They're a clear coat aluminum that looks like a stainless steel stanchion. So just remember that when you're looking at these.
Okay. And then last time I think we talked about some photos of the surrounding area to kind of get an idea of materials and building heights. Do we have those?
Do you want to go through these?
Yeah, we actually do have those. Do you have the whole first half of this stuff has all of that?
You mind just kind of walking through that a little bit?
Sure. Thanks. And I didn't take these
The
photos,
surrounding.
but these are some things in the area. Where's this one? Is this the Hyatt?
You want to go through this?
Yeah.
This
Yeah,
is actually
Yeah, let's go through that.
shows the surrounding area.
So that's looking at us from the corner. And this is just stuff all around Corona Del Mar. And, it's sort of a hodgepodge of things out there. There's a lot of apartments and hotels that are more similar in architecture to us. Some of them letter early 60s stucco squares. And then there are some Spanish things out there.
So this is across. Is this what?
Didn't you guys submit these last time, these photos? I feel like we've seen these already.
Yeah, and that's still what's out in that neighborhood.
We had asked for additionals though, like with the.
Are those the other?
Yeah.
we have some
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
So this is where Leo Daly came up with, if you look at the cantilever system that has the double post here, obviously this is a walkway, so it has two. They were using a piece of that to show, okay, we're going to put a trellis with this double post on either side of the pole, since it's such a small area.
Where is this one? Is it?
These are all around our area. I'd have to get with Leo Daly to find out
Except for
exactly
this one.
where they are.
That's not around our area.
No.
Right.
And then
And that, so, and the
Right.
Fest Parker's the farther down.
I'll find out where that is. The breaks that we put, that you see here, there's 4 of them that go down, came from this. And again, I'll have to find out exactly where these are at. Within our neighborhood.
Yeah, I think
They're down further away.
the Corona Del Mar neighborhood is not. There's not like some typical style of architecture that exemplifies that neighborhood, like you'd find on the east side is all a certain thing, or it's eclectic. There are some more recent things which have a Spanish style to them because that's what review boards approve, like the Hyatt centric thing. But everything else you can tell just looking at the roofs here. It's basically it's like late 50s, early 60s apartments and multifamily stuff around there, and some hotels that are the same vintage as this one, and then obviously Santa Barbara Hotel and stuff has been redone. But
Are there examples of metal roofing though anywhere in that area that you guys could find?
metal roofing.
There's no metal.
No.
roofing.
What is the roofing material? It says new roof, so,
Yeah, we were proposing a standing seam metal roof there. We mentioned that last time, but I know from the street view, the roof is almost, the pitch almost doesn't exist, right? So
but you're proposing a standing seam metal
we're
roof.
proposing
So I think
standing
that's
seam.
the.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
There's
okay.
asphalt, there's composite, shingled, like composite plastic type shingle, and then the terracotta roof. So,
And then with the synthetic, because last time you guys had a lot of natural wood too. I think teak was one option. I think there was a second hardwood, maybe that was a cedar as well.
we had cedar on the fences.
So how come that
teak,
got
and
pulled off, and then how come you guys went with synthetic?
we pulled all that off and just went with a straight synthetic so we could get all the same material. And this is a modular type product, so it's easy to install and easy to get. So we just decided to go with one product
And
across the entire
It
property.
wears really well, and again, that was towards simplifying the palette and not having so many materials.
Are there other color options besides that one available?
There's a lot of other color options available.
Is that some of them right there? Could I see them maybe? And those are all my questions. If you guys want to jump to somebody else,
Okay.
I can look at
Richard,
those.
questions?
Thank you.
Here's another bigger piece.
So can you explain this end screen a little bit? Where are the holes, and are there existing columns in line of those? You
Right.
mentioned existing holes. What?
Yeah, well, there
Are
aren't really columns there. It's just sort of it's sort of open right now.
Right now it's just open with railing on it.
Overhang.
Yeah, and the screen is a completely new element, and the holes are just for visual interest. Yeah, rather than having a complete solid.
Of this material.
Correct.
Yeah, or a different color of that.
Vertically, or
It's going
do you have
vertically correct.
Wait, I know that's the elevation
Have a-
I'm trying
you
to,
have a-
do you know what page that's on?
close-up of that elevation wise?
Yeah, we have that, and we also have some pictures of how that looks in an actual installation. They're on far more modern buildings, and the way they did it
So
looks
this
a
is-
lot more modern, but you can see that it works without like a lot of cut ends to it.
And I get it. My other question is, you're still proposing the white for the body color and the teal for the doors?
Correct.
And kind of that marine look.
Mhm.
And then those other screens, you have between the ground floor parking ends and the door and the hallways, you have a detail on that?
No, those were something that the concept guys added on, and just
So
it
you
was
don't know-
last minute we think this would help the effect of the property.
So that works with your car overhangs and things?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Kevin?
I think one of the comments, and I think one of the main comments was, how does this fit into the neighborhood, and materials that have been chosen, how do those fit in with this Santa Barbara style of architecture that is somewhat prevalent, at least along Cabrillo. So I think that's why we were looking for more information on adjacent buildings and their materiality and that kind of stuff. So I think we've kind of covered that. Do you want to go back and talk about that some more, about how you're responding to that comment?
Well,
or your approach, are you saying that that's not?
I guess our approach is not to match 100% what's there, because there isn't something that's a completely prevalent style there. And, you know, we come up with this with projects all the time in Santa Barbara, right? Everybody's like, well, it doesn't exactly match what's all around it. And we end up with this totally homogeneous architecture everywhere. I've recently been to Single Family Design Board, where we had a standing seam metal roof approved up on the Riviera almost unanimously, even though it was different than what was around it. And I'm not suggesting your board do anything because they did that, but my point is that architecture can be compatible with an area without being exactly the same as an area. And, yeah, you could be radically different than an area and have it be inappropriate. But, we feel that the cable railings is something approved in Santa Barbara all the time.
So how is it compatible to this neighborhood? I think that's the question, because I'm going to probably ask the same thing.
Yeah, I think it's compatible in terms of mass, bulk, and scale. I think it's compatible in terms of being, a very coastal-looking architecture. I think now that the palette's been simplified, it's compatible without being too busy, because everything else, regardless of what style it might be, is pretty simple in its materials. And, it doesn't match the Spanish at all, and we don't intend it to match the Spanish at all. And I think that may be really important on Cabrillo, where as you drive on Cabrillo, that's what you perceive as you go along there. But I think as you get a block back, it gets eclectic, and there isn't like a great architectural style in the neighborhood to pull from. And we'd maybe like to set something that's different and newer and updated and still compatible, I think. But, maybe as time goes along, more things will match that.
Okay. So on your entry trellis pieces, so in plan, this one backs up to the swimming pool area. And the other one's...
Sorry. Where's our site plan that shows the...
Going this way.
There it is. We have columns.
Yeah, and then they cantilever out over, this one cantilevers over a parking space, and this one over a walkway, and half of a parking space.
And then on the wood material, so on the screen, the vertical screen areas, is that going to be like double-sided?
Yeah, it looks like it.
So posts get clad with this
Well, it's
material?
not just a cladding system, they do tube as well. So they do all, they have a complete system for screening, fencing, cladding, top rails, the whole.
It
they do
looks
all.
like lumber stock.
Right.
There aren't like seams at the edges where they've put 4 pieces of this together or something.
Okay. Okay, those are my questions.
Thanks. Oh,
Have the pointer, please. Thank you. We go to the landscape plan.
hold on.
Where? Are these wheel stops accurately depicted in terms of their locations?
Yeah, I believe they are. The spaces are, I think, are 18 deep, and yeah, the wheel stops are 2 feet back.
2 feet back from the fence?
Well, that planter's 2 feet, so the wheel stops are
18 inches from the edge of the planter.
yeah.
So why couldn't you place wheel stops all the way along here and have the planter widened by another foot at least? That's where the wheels are going to stop. You don't have any room behind the planters to accommodate cars. I'm assuming, that being the case, you could widen this planter by a foot, make it 3 feet wide.
The planter shown in the drawings actually to scale, it's 2 feet. You could maybe...
You have to just speak into the microphone.
Also, could you identify yourself?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Since you weren't
I'm
at the
Roderick
beginning?
from CDPC, Landscape Architects, that have done this. On the base that we were provided, those the parking stalls are about 18 feet deep, and we're kind of squeezing that 2 feet in. So, with regards to the wheel stops, they may or may not be to code. They're just graphically shown.
So, Roger,
I think
real quick. So the 18 feet we're talking about is from here to here, correct? So really, we can't overhang more than 2 feet. You need 16 feet.
The 18 feet's being dimensioned from the planner.
The 18 goes from this fence to the end of the
Yes.
space.
On this drawing, it's not.
So technically, you don't have enough room between your wheel stop and your fence to actually protect your fence, because a typical car overhang that we provide for in parking design standards is 2.5 feet.
Transportation requires 2 feet.
Okay. So, okay, that's fine. I appreciate that. I'm okay with that 2 feet. I don't think there's any point in having a wheel stop there because you're actually stopping your car shorter than than what you want to provide for. Neither here nor there at this point. Is there opportunity here next to this trash enclosure for a planter?
Okay, that's the in the base that we were provided. It shows iconically one one trash enclosure, but looking at it from photos and Google Earth, it seems like to me there's 2 adjacent, right next to each other. I don't know the requirement.
I think
for that size.
Bob,
hotel.
we could study that trash enclosure and look at providing planters or reconfiguring the trash enclosure. I mean, that's one of the few places on the site that we have any flexibility to do anything.
Okay, it looks like you don't have a sufficient space here for a parking stall.
No.
So perhaps you could mess with that and find some room for a planter. Is there any reason why you're not showing trees in these wide spots?
Yeah. So the existing fence, or we're going up against the fence, and that 2-foot planter is really kind of designed for what we think is the most appropriate plant, and it's going to be a vine, and that'll give that nice green kind of a green wall look, and it'll look really nice. The pop-outs, we could incorporate more trees, but it's there's trees on the adjacent property, I believe.
Have you got photographs of that indicate what's going on over here?
Well, we don't have any photos that we took from here to here, but you can see the trees kind of in this aerial photo here.
And another thing with adding the trees to a parking lot like this, we're going to dig a hole and essentially put them in a pot. So the interior dimensions of the diamonds are 5 feet, because I don't really like to go underneath that. And it's great if it's square, and even that's kind of bonsaiing a tree planter in reality. So we could try to put some kind of vertical tree in there that would, kind of break it up a little bit.
Would the same trees we did on De La Vina work in these kind of pockets?
Remind me what those are, please.
I don't remember. They're a tall columnar tree. We had this exact same situation with parking going straight up against a building, and I can't remember the names of trees when I just read them off the page. So
I don't know what they are, but they're not in pots. They're in
no,
the
they're
ground.
planted in the ground, and they're in similar size cutouts to these ones.
Okay, well, that's all the questions I have. Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks. Howard, questions?
Yeah. On the same page, is there a fence along the northwest property line there, driveway? On page,
He's on the
last
landscape
page,
plan.
landscape, right there.
So to the left.
Are you
that's
talking
it.
about?
Yeah.
What is happening? The driveway is right up to the property line, or?
So
There's
yeah,
a-
what's happening in here?
I can answer that. There's a main driveway coming in off the road, and it's split between the 2 properties. So when they laid it out originally, there are entries to both properties, the one adjacent and ours. And in between it is about a 3, maybe 4 foot wrought iron fence.
Between the properties?
Yes, correct.
Do you have a picture of that?
I don't.
3 to 4 foot wrought iron fence?
That's correct.
Vertical.
It's like a vertical metal fence.
Are there
Does
other?
it go from front to back all the way, or is it?
It goes from my recollection is it goes from about the front of the building back.
All the way back to the trash?
Yep.
Is
Back to
there-
the trash.
Is there a sheet in here with photos all around this building?
No.
Okay.
And the same question applies to the opposite side, where it looks to me like you have pavement right up to the property line.
That's correct.
Is that also a shared driveway? Same deal with the same fence?
Yeah, same fence over there.
Starting with the building and going all the way back?
Correct.
Okay. And who are your neighbors to the west and to the east?
I'm not sure who the
We have to point
neighbors.
over here, so.
What is the use? Is it a hotel?
This is condos, I believe, apartments or condos here. Because I
Okay.
see people coming up and down out of there.
And is that a Spanish building?
Yeah, it is. It looks like.
It
looks
I
like
believe-
this. It's a Spanish red tile roof.
Right. And on the opposite side, on the opposite end again, back to the west side,
It looks
where you have,
like
again,
this
what's the
is that
building on the
building.
other side there? And how,
Yeah, that's another.
What number is that? 10? No, 10 is this building.
Another hotel.
It's another hotel. It looks like it still has a red roof. A little simpler.
so is that a smaller hotel, like maybe two-story, one, like?
It looks
three-
to be
three or
about the
four
same
rooms?
size
I'm
as
not
ours.
sure it's that much smaller than ours.
It's not the old yacht club inn, is it?
I don't know.
It's,
There is a building on that block called the Old Yacht Club Inn,
Oh, there. That's right here.
That's further down the street.
way down,
Yep.
okay.
this is
Yeah,
like
it's further.
Pacific Ocean Hotel or something. I
Okay.
can't really read it.
Okay.
But it's 2 stories, similar to
Okay.
the
And
site.
then, you didn't talk much about your hardscape. What kind of hardscapes do you have going on here?
Well, we've got an existing paved parking area that's a legal existing parking area, and we're proposing to leave it other than the edge enhancements. It's not really part of the scope of our
AC
project.
paving.
Yeah, it's just asphalt.
And so then the AC paving abuts concrete sidewalks?
Yep.
Yeah.
Is that gray concrete sidewalks?
Mm-hmm.
And all that's staying?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, question then, you show a couple of handrails. You show a handrail with that kind of textured aluminum metal, and then you talk about a wooden cap rail. Are those two materials going on in this property?
There's one material which is proposed to be this wood look metal project, and that's it. That's the only cap
Would
on the
look
handrail.
in metal.
Yes, like this.
It'll look
Okay.
exactly like that
Okay.
piece there. Just in a tube, aluminum tube.
So this second floor deck where you have the fire pit, what is the walking surface? What are we walking on?
It's just
On that deck.
It's going to be the same as the existing deck. It'll just be concrete.
So there is an existing deck, and you're just going to use that deck,
Mhm.
and it is concrete.
And put a new rail on it.
I see.
Because right now the rails are just like this nondescript metal welded, bolted on to the side.
Right,
You know what they
right.
did in this early '60s.
And what is the material of the metal screening that appears at one end? Are they at both ends or just one end?
They're at both ends.
Both
One's
ends.
street view and one's the apartment or condo view here. So you're going to have one
So-
screen wall here and one screen wall here.
And the material, Howard, it's the same wood material. It just looks like board stock put in a vertical pattern. It is made out of metal.
Metal, but looks like
but
wood.
looks like wood. That's
Yeah,
right.
okay. And last question about the parking, what do you call those? Trellises, call those shade canopies?
You call it a trellis.
Parked, but they're for over the cars.
Right.
Right.
And those are going to be, those are existing?
No, those are proposed. There's no shade structures at all out
These
there.
are steel frame, and then you have your corrugated paneling across the frames.
Well,
right?
the whole thing is we dropped the corrugated panel steel frame things which were here last time. What we're proposing now is something that looks more like a made out of wood stock. So it would look like a heavy timber trellis. But
Oh, you're talking about real wood now?
no, we'll use the same material, but
I
it
see.
looks like real wood, and
What they want to use everywhere.
it's a whole lot easier to support it because the weight is a lot less. I can't imagine the footings you'd have to do to support that trellis structure out of real wood. It'd be 12 feet deep.
I don't think so. But they would be more than aluminum. So, but the frame is steel, and then these things are aluminum on top of the steel.
Like a cladding, correct?
Wait a minute, cladding. What's the roof?
It comes in tubes.
Okay.
Is there a better
So
drawing?
they're
that we
Yeah,
can
there's
look at?
details of the
tubes
trellis.
that
There's
look
a
like
full set
this.
of details.
And then the shaft of the column and the vents, those are also aluminum or steel?
Those will be steel, but they'll be cladded with this.
Okay, so they're aluminum clad steel.
No, the structure will be steel. It's going to be cladded in this, so you don't see the steel. You're only going to see the
Right.
wood product.
Again, I
It'll
say
look like a
aluminum
profile.
clad steel.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, that's all the questions. Thank you.
Do you want to see the details? They're in here. There's 26 pages. I don't know which one they're on.
We'll go to, we'll keep going.
I
Did
have
you
some additional
another?
questions.
Sure, go ahead.
On your trellises, I can understand this trellis is kind of the entry to the, where's
the lobby?
administration? The lobby's here, correct?
No, the lobby's moving over here.
So
This is
So-
more for a check-in, like you'd pull up here and then you would check in.
So this is kind of a pull-up space.
Mhm.
All right. And then this is just kind of a accentuated walk
Yeah, I think they did it more for,
balance.
to be more asymmetrical with it, instead of having one on one side of the pole and not mirroring it on the other side. It might look funky from the street, so.
Okay. Yeah, that's my remaining question. Thank you.
Okay. Comments. David, you want to start with comments?
Sure. I guess first for next round, if you guys can maybe, what really helped last time was those big images you guys had of the renderings. I think a big sheet like that versus the 8.5 by 11 is a lot more effective to really show all that. I know that that's a time issue though, and money and things like that, but I think for this kind of project, because there's so much to sell, I think that would probably be a big help. And I think some of the renderings have, like you point out, some things are showing on the elevations, or not showing on the elevations, they're showing on the renderings. Some things on the renderings aren't on elevations anymore, like that open decorative block on the one wall that's gone now. Sorry, so just things like that I think to help present work. And I think that helps sell like the package, because I'm still going off of the black and whites on the trellis. I'm still not convinced on that design. I still think it does read as desert mid-century. It's hard to find any examples of that in this area because there really aren't. There's likenesses of it that you guys showed in those images, but really that steel frame structure with the synthetic wood like that is not in that area. So I think if that's still a really hard sell for you guys, and there's some nice amenities and reasons why it's being proposed, I think overall, I think you need to look at some more natural materials to really help sell the design and ground it in the area. There is something there by updating this that you guys are achieving that I like. I don't think the synthetic works so for the character of the design and for the designs in the area. It's just not prevalent in that area. So it's hard to just do a complete jump past it and not even try to integrate any of that. So I think you'll be successful if you're able to, if you're really set on these modern aspects to kind of push it forward and update the image. I would probably say to start with some natural materials. I think that was actually something that was really effective last time. There was just a lot of it. But I think the natural wood was a lot more helpful than this. I think the synthetic doesn't read well for me right now. Unfortunately, even though there's a cost, there's an efficiency, it's compatible. So I think wood, I'd strongly support wood over the synthetic. So yeah, the trellis is too modern as it is. I'd restudy that and maybe introducing more natural elements to secondary members to help support that if that's still something that's a focal point. I'd asked last time for a section 2 to kind of see what that relationship with the synthetic is and those eaves, because I think that relationship of the eave condition and how that intersects is really helpful. I didn't see that in there yet, so I would probably say next round, if you guys still want to push for that too, maybe get that in there to really see what that relationship is, because all that synthetic everywhere, just kind of visualize that in my head. I think it's too much. So I think if you're going to be selective, then maybe try for the natural wood in certain areas. You can still tone it back and get those looks that you guys want. I think those screen walls are nice elements right there. I think they would look great with some natural wood, though, and they would tie in better with the area. And then, personally, maybe you don't do it up on the eaves now, because then are you doing natural wood up there? That's a lot. Then you're pushing in a totally different direction again. So I think, personally, I think pulling back off the eaves would help. Focusing on natural wood in those areas and the trellises and screen elements that are super prevalent throughout your design. Those are kind of my biggest things right now. I personally don't have an issue with that. The doors, I think they do kind of read beach style, without being too kitschy. I think it's a nice color. I think it helps provide some warmth. The screens, though, those decorative screens, I know why they're there. They're totally functional. I get it, but they kind of look a little Moorish right now because of the arches and stuff. So I think if you're going to go with those and you want a decorative look, it's an easy way to add some detail to your elevations. But maybe study the patterning a little bit more so they don't look as Moorish, because like you point out, there's examples in the area that you guys don't want to mimic. I get that, like the Spanish stuff. This isn't a Spanish-style building. Makes no sense to try to do Spanish. But then your images, you showed 6 of those buildings, like 5 of them were Spanish-style buildings, and they weren't even in the same block. So I think if you're going to show that at your meeting, that's kind of sending a different message now. So if you guys don't want to do that, scratch it, find stuff in the area that's going to support what you guys have going on, and I think you actually have enough right now. And I think paring back is appreciated on the materials. I think that's the right direction. So I think with some tweaking, and even right now, like it's hard to see with this image, the wood columns, what that relationship is with such a small rendering.
Mm-hmm.
But I start to see that if that becomes natural now, I think that softens up the building a little bit more and still gives that cleanliness. And perhaps that wood, the natural wood with the metal roofing, maybe that starts to tie in a little bit better, because I know that area, especially in that building, it's a really low slope, so there's a potential there. Personally, though, I'm not sure what, I'm still kind of on the fence whether it's acceptable, because there really is no other examples for far of that metal, but it is a low sloped roof. So I think depending on how the rest of the materials are presented, I think there's potential for that, but I'm just not sold one way or another to say yes or no yet on that. My comments.
Thanks. Richard?
Yeah, I appreciate what we're trying to do here and upgrade this. I think that, and last time I used the word zoomy in a very contemporary. I'm having a real problem with this approach of the mock wood. I think you need to be honest in your materials, and I would not say that, a metal trellis, a steel trellis, cantilevered the way it is, and the columns and the end screen and so forth being in metal as an honest material that has those capacities to cantilever and so forth are good. But I like what David says, is that you use those honest materials and then you come back with your wood and your warmth where appropriate, where you don't need those cantilevers, where you don't need those spans, where you can infill the panels with real wood, where you can take the trellises and provide real wood on the trellises, and other places where, just to have the honesty material. I really have a problem with the faux wood. I'm thinking that, I'm still confused on the design of the trellises. I see this, I think it's this mock-up that has the double columns. And you mentioned double columns in one of your examples in the neighborhood, but all your elevations show one column. So I'm not clear. I think that what I'm trying to say is maybe back spanning, or definitely providing two columns. Maybe back spanning the trellis to get away from that real sleek, zoomy look, and perhaps even introducing, the back. This one just to cover that the visitor is, I understand what you're doing, but maybe it doesn't cover it all the way and backspans into the pool area where you get more of a balance and easy.
Could I ask a
easier.
question before we get too far into the trellises? We're not married to having these trellises at all. So if the board feels like they aren't necessary,
Okay.
we
Or
just remove them.
Perhaps perhaps with one trellis that's successful, that's able to sit there with balance posts and so forth. Maybe that's the solution, where you have an honesty and relaxed materials. I'm still having a problem with the teal and the white. And to back up to honesty in materials, I think if you're using metal and so forth, if it's a richer, darker color and with a satin color, it would be more successful. So I'm thinking deeper, richer colors, not the white brash with the brash teal. That's my personal opinion on that. So I think those are my comments.
Thank you. Kevin?
I'm agreeing with a lot of what David was saying. And I think, like, to try and make this a Spanish-style building would take a lot more effort and a lot more change. So I think the upgrades that are being proposed are nice, and start with the roof. I think just based on the quality of the material that a standing seam roof provides, it's miles better than what's there right now, and I'm sure better than any comp shingle roof that's in the neighborhood. So I think just based on the quality of that material, that's something that I could get behind. The railings, I think, as much as the renderings don't really represent the railings, there is something nice about having that wood color on the vertical stanchions and all that. I think for some reason, that kind of all brings it together and makes it a little bit more successful than the very harsh aluminum reflective materials and all that. So if there's a way to move towards a little bit more wood in that area, I think that's fine. I think having the screens in front of the cars is, understandable. I understand why you would want to do that. It's an opportunity maybe to get some vines to grow up on that. You could cut out some little vine pockets, something to soften that as well. I don't think you really need both of the trellis elements, like you're saying. And maybe pick one and do it really well. And I'll leave that up to you guys to decide. And then the screens on the end, I understand the durability of this product is certainly desirable, but the real stuff would be preferable, I think. And then the colors, I don't mind it necessarily. It is one block back from Cabrillo, so it's not gonna really like stand out and be loud. So I think the colors are fine. And then anything you can do in the parking lot to get more landscaping is appreciated. So that's it.
Bob?
I would love to see color photographs of this place when it was first built, when I was a senior in high school. Because, it was a contemporary building at the time, and, you're kind of evolving it to become a little more contemporary. And, thankfully, it's a block away from Cabrillo Boulevard, so you really don't need to worry about being Spanish. I agree with the comments that have been made so far, particularly with regard to honesty of materials. I really have I really think you need to make use of that planting space along the back, plant some trees, do some research, find the trees that will do well in those kinds of conditions. The city's full of parking lots with little pockets for trees, and the trees are doing fine. I think you need to get as many trees along that backside as you can in those wide spots. I would say no taller, ultimately no taller than the building itself, so that you don't block views from further inland. But I think it would be a kindness to your neighbors to plant as many trees along that northern edge as you can, just to give them a view of landscaping rather than the backside of your hotel or motel. I'd like to see, try to find some planting space in that northwest corner where the trash enclosure is. When you come back, please provide more detail with regard to the landscaping on the abutting properties so that we know what we're dealing with in terms of a borrowed landscape. Right now, you're basically showing us what you're doing, but we don't have that good a picture of what's going on next door. I should drive down there myself and take a look, but there's no guarantee I'll do that, so I'd like for you to do that. Other than that, that's essentially it, but one more thing, and that is, I know I asked last time that you reconsider the pear tree that was proposed for the parking lot, and you've come back with a tree that is, due to its generic form, texture, and color, is less of a reference to the Midwest or the East Coast than the previous tree. It's still more of a vertical tree, and I think it would be great to have something against that building that had more of a canopy, more spread, more individual character. You're planting one tree, and it would be great if it could be the kind of specimen that people would look at and be impressed by. And also, you might be able to cast more shade. I think that's important in all of our parking lots. I think that's it. Thank you.
So do you want to see a picture of it? There's the original with teal doors on it. 1962.
Yeah. This is probably heresy to say this, but I'm surprised that nobody has come up with the notion of landmarking this motel, because it's the very first Motel 6. It really is essentially the Santa Barbara landmark. Of course, we'd probably be giving you grief about any of these changes.
Right, yeah, well, that's different.
Madam Chair.
All right, Howard?
Just to clarify.
I have...
hold on.
Just wanted to clarify, because there may be members of the public watching, and they may raise some concerns. The city historian did review this in conjunction with Anthony Grumbine, who is the historian on HLC, to determine whether or not this was something that the city would be interested in making either a structure of merit and landmark, and it was determined at that time that it does not retain its integrity.
Okay, thanks for clarifying.
I agree
Any additional comments?
pretty much with all of the comments that have been made, and particularly the last ones about the landscaping. And I would add a couple more things in this. I would like to know, again, about the fencing that goes along the property, and I especially would like to echo David's comments about natural materials and Richard's comments about losing the teal and the white. I don't think those serve the purpose. And I also would ask the applicants to study the color of the roof. I don't have a sense of being able to see this roof, but I guess you do if you get far enough away from the property. But a standing seam roof, there are tile roofs on each side, and again, this white roof thing, which is environmentally correct because it reflects heat and reduces the air conditioning loads. I don't buy all of that. I think it's applicable in some situations, but I think a nice roof color would be appropriate that would still be inviting and warm and not be flashing in someone's eye, especially a overflying aircraft. And with regard to these natural materials, I think another material to lose altogether is this artificial aluminum cladding everywhere. Railings, steel cladding, aluminum paneling. It's not the way. If it may be that that's what you want for your Motel 6 corporate thing, but in this location, close to the coast, I would study yachts. Teak, stainless steel, stainless stranded cable, teak railings, etc. Study yachts. That's the place to go for the materials and detailing of this building.
All right. The only few things that I'll add, and then I can sort of summarize the comments, is this is calling out new fence. So we'd want to see what that looks like as far as, that's what this note says. So we'd want to see those new fences. I think that we need clarity on the trash enclosure and if it's bigger than that or if that's the actual size. And then just as far as the trellis, my initial thought is it makes sense. I think it makes sense as far as like marking an entry. But maybe it actually seems like, you said the lobby was over here, but this actually has the walkway. And if you had posts on either side, it would really kind of create that entrance rather than you park, but then there's no kind of really like entry. So, you know, I do think you probably only need one side, but it would make sense to actually cover the path of travel so that it kind of is a marker and people would know where to go. And those were the two additional comments I wanted to add. So I can summarize and then board members can let me know if I missed something, but it would basically be, because it's comments only, so it's indefinite continuance back to the full board with the following comments that the board appreciates the upgrades and the effort going into this project. However, we do request that you restudy several things. So overall, restudying the materials and utilizing more natural materials or just being more honest to the materials that are being used. Restudy the trellis and location to potentially only be in one location marking the entry, or let's see, provide some additional photos of the site all the way around the site so that we can see even closer up photos, especially if there's going to be the changes at the AC units. It'd be good to see what that looks like and then what you're proposing. Provide larger renderings so that we can see the design intent. Provide some trees along the north property line. Then also provide some planting along the trash enclosure and confirm that is the exact size of the trash enclosure. Provide just information on the new fencing that will be installed if it is new. Restudy the screens at the ends of the building to utilize natural materials, but also to restudy the patterning of the openings. And what was you wanted the tree that was...
Yeah, the one tree that's in the...
and then the back planter?
It's in the notch of the building.
On the north side of the building?
Yeah.
To restudy a
Yeah,
more canopy-like tree?
a broader spreading canopy tree with more character to the trunk.
A specimen.
Right.
Did we mention the roof?
Yeah, to restudy, to look at the material of the roof and provide some color options that seem to reflect, or to restudy the standing seam. I thought that,
Should we do a straw vote on the standing seat?
Yeah.
yeah, that probably, because I'm on the fence. How many board members could support the standing seam roof? I think they could, depending on the color.
Depending on the color.
Okay. Was that unanimous? Okay. So provide color options for the standing seam roof. I guess how many board members can support the, I guess it's the color that the doors, is that the color that the doors originally were?
Those are the original iconic Motel 6 colors, and we'd really like to keep those, with this being the original.
To bring it back, basically? I guess, so how many board members could support that color, or we could take a vote the next one, but how many board members can support that? So, it's good.
I can support it with condition.
What's the condition?
I think if that's the icon, then perhaps it's the white that we're looking at to tone that down.
I cannot support the teal. I think the teal is like Black Sambo's logo. I think it was done in a day when, that was okay. It's not okay now.
Okay. Your comment was because of
The combination of the bright teal and the bright white is just too brash, and that.
So if you warmed it, the white?
Richness to this, to tone down the white to a significantly different, softer, deeper color.
Okay.
But the vote for
The vote for the color of the door still passed.
Still passed.
And I think that.
I do agree with Richard, though, that
Yeah.
toning down the white would,
I think once
get away
we.
from that contrast.
No.
There's a lot of white.
There's a lot of white, so I think with the comments about the natural materials, and as you pull the materials for the railings and everything together, I would look at different options for the white. Does anyone else have anything to add? Did I miss anything?
And I'm dying to say something. If you give up one of these trellises, it seems there's a real schism between the lobby beam over here and your entry trellis and I noticed there's maybe a hiccup in an old pattern here. Is there any way, and their sign is over here, is there any way to make this, with trellis, with sidewalk, reorganize this and abandon that? Because when you look at the photos and the site plan, it's obvious that this is
Yes, there might be a way to do that. We'll look at it.
Yeah. That's my comment.
Improve the
Maybe
site
get some
circulation.
landscaping in there.
Yeah, somehow. It seems like that's leftover and not.
So it'd be to study the site circulation at the entry,
Thank
pedestrian entry.
Thank you.
So,
I'll make that motion. Are we ready for a motion?
yeah, that was the motion.
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye.
Can I add something?
Opposed? Under discussion?
Under discussion. It just falls in line of what Board Member 6 was talking about right now is I would advise you guys to just start the conversation with building right now if you haven't about your ADA location because you're flipping your lobby. They might actually force you to restripe that frontage and provide that. You might actually have an opportunity if you go to restripe and providing your ADA spot closer to the new lobby location. You might have to, your plan might shift enough where you actually have a dedicated true entrance now because of how that layout's working in front of you. So I think if you do that now, you could probably meld several different aspects of your design into one piece right now.
Okay.
So for clarification, what was the vote on that?
It was a unanimous vote.
Yes, it was.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
We have one more item. I wonder. Are they
Is this
in?
extra, or is this ours?
Moving on to item 4, 22 Anacapa Street. We'll see if the applicant is here. Do we know if the applicant's here?
You know what? I'll take one.
Oh, yes, right here.
Oh, yeah, I got the other.
Because they were supposed to be at 5:10. So how long do we wait? So if it was 5, so this is the 15-minute mark.
Well, one more minute.
But we can wait till it gets to 5.
So they're not here?
Correct.
I'll go and prevent them from parking. That's on tape now.
He's going to feel cheated for missing the last one and then have us all leave at the same time.
No, we're leaving soon if the applicant doesn't show up.
Okay, all right. We're just waiting 5 minutes.
Looks like 30
Oh,
seconds.
We're waiting 2 minutes. Because we're already almost 15 minutes past.
That's 2. That's 2. I'm going to go shoot up right after the meeting.
However, you can,
Tape, by the way.
the- all right.
Do you want me to call?
So,
Well, that's the ultimate
Let me
service.
try calling and find out where they are, if they're like maybe 2 minutes away or something.
I sent an email. I've been on the, I think it's sort of at this point their responsibility. Yeah.
5:10. But technically, it really is one, we can give them 1 minute. Wait till, all right, well, actually, that was the 1 minute. All right, so,
Suppose they're waiting outside, waiting for this last.
no, Matthew just went outside, so, all right, so then that will conclude the ABR meeting for Monday, August 13th. Thanks, everyone.